7 m. The room is perfectly still, yet something is moving. It isn't outside your window. It isn't in the street. It's inside your skull. A single thought has just slipped the lock and begun walking through the corridors of your mind like it owns the place. You can feel it, that quiet, familiar urgency. The thought doesn't arrive as a villain. It arrives as a warning, as responsibility, as just being careful. It says, look, this matters. You need to figure this out right now. So you follow it. You replay the conversation from earlier. This time you hear new tones in your own voice, tones you didn't mean. You notice a facial expression on someone else's face that suddenly becomes evidence. You rewrite your answer. You imagine what they must have thought. You imagine the consequences of what they thought. Then you imagine the consequences of those consequences. Suddenly your heart is racing as if danger is real and present. But the room hasn't changed. Nothing is happening, except the mind is manufacturing a crisis with the emotional intensity of truth. You try to stop, but the more you try to force it away, the more the thought tightens its grip. It becomes a courtroom where you are the accused and the judge and the jury, and the trial never ends. The sentence is always the same: more thinking. And that's when a darker question rises from underneath the noise, slow and honest, a hand coming up through water. What if this isn't intelligence at all? What if this is fear, wearing the mask of wisdom? This is where Stoicism begins, not with comfort, not with slogans, but with the rare courage to look directly at the machinery of your suffering. The Stoics didn't use the modern word, overthinking, yet they knew the experience intimately, the mind that cannot rest, the imagination that keeps dragging the future into the present like a hostage, the inner voice that claims to be protecting you while quietly draining your life of peace. They would ask you to notice something you've been too exhausted to notice. Overthinking is not merely thought. It is thought that has lost its place. It is the mind attempting to control reality by multiplying scenarios. It is your imagination trying to become a shield, even when the shield is made of smoke. And because smoke can't stop the world, you keep adding more smoke, more analysis, more rehearsals, contingency plans, more what-ifs, until you can't breathe. Overthinking begins with a human need: safety. The need to be secure, to be accepted, to avoid pain. It begins with love, in a twisted way, the love of the life you're trying not to lose, the love of the image you're trying not to damage, love of a future you're trying not to ruin. But the mind, when it panics, doesn't protect with wisdom. It protects with noise. It convinces you that if you can just think far enough ahead, you'll reach certainty. Yet certainty never comes. You reach the end of one thought and find another waiting. You solve one imagined problem and immediately discover 10 more. The mind keeps moving the finish line because the finish line is not a real place. It is an emotional promise. If you can just predict everything, nothing will hurt you. And Stoicism, calm and almost merciless in its clarity, answers: you cannot predict everything. You cannot prevent all pain. You cannot negotiate with uncertainty. You can only meet it. This is why the Stoics place a single idea at the center of the human life, an idea that doesn't just soothe the mind, but reorganizes it. It is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about events. Epictetus, new hardship from the inside, speaks this line like someone handing you a torch in a dark tunnel. Because once you see it, you begin to recognize the great illusion behind overthinking. You are often not suffering the world. You are suffering the story you are telling yourself about the world. A delayed message becomes, I'm being rejected. A mistake becomes, I'm incompetent. A strange look becomes, they're judging me. A setback becomes, my life is falling apart. Of these are facts. They are interpretations. They are judgments. They are meaning. And meaning is where the mind hides its sharpest weapons. The Stoics called those first automatic reactions impressions, initial appearances. An impression arrives like a gust of wind. This is bad. This is dangerous. This is humiliating. This is the beginning of the end. And most people, without training, accept the impression immediately. They sign their name under it. They build their mood and identity on top of it. Stoicism teaches a different move pause before assent. Between the impression and your agreement with it, there is a thin space, so thin it almost doesn't feel real. But it is real. It is the space where freedom lives. And in that space, you can ask a question that quietly cuts the wires of the panic machine. Is this a fact or is this my interpretation? Overthinking collapses that distinction. It fuses imagination and reality until you can't tell which is which. Your body reacts to a hypothetical future as if it is already happening. Your heart mourns losses that haven't occurred. Your nervous system goes to war over a story. This is why you can be exhausted at the end of a day in which, outwardly, nothing catastrophic happened. Because inwardly you lived through catastrophes, hundreds of them, manufactured by a mind that is trying to prevent catastrophe. Stoicism takes you further, deeper, to the main root from which overthinking grows: the craving for control. Overthinking is an attempt to control outcomes, to control how people see you, to control what tomorrow brings, to control the exact shape of your life. And since you cannot control these things directly, the mind tries to control them indirectly, through endless thought, as if thinking hard enough can bend the universe. The Stoics draw a boundary line so clean it can feel almost shocking when you first truly accept it, saying, some things are up to you. Some things are not. Your choices are up to you. Your intentions are up to you. Your values are up to you. Your effort in the present is up to you. Other people's opinions are not up to you. The past is not up to you. The timing of life is not up to you. The full outcome of your efforts is not up to you. Overthinking is what happens when you treat what is not yours as if it were yours. It is what happens when you try to hold the ocean still. You begin to feel responsible for the entire sea. Because you cannot shoulder that responsibility, your mind spins, trying to find a way to do the impossible. Stoicism doesn't shame you for this. It simply brings you back to a more sane definition of responsibility. You are not responsible for everything that happens. You are responsible for your response. And that is not a downgrade. It is liberation. Because once you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, energy returns. Your attention returns. Your life returns. The mind, which has been scattering itself across imaginary futures, begins to come home. The mind will resist. It will say, if I don't overthink, I'll be careless. If I don't worry, I'll fail. If I don't analyze, I'll miss something. This is where Stoicism is subtle. It doesn't tell you to stop planning. It tells you to stop worshipping plans. Plan, but don't cling. Prepare, don't panic. Act, but don't demand. This is the difference between wisdom and obsession. Wisdom uses thought as a tool and then sets it down. Obsession grips thought like a weapon and never stops swinging, even when the battle is imaginary. And now, the story turns from diagnosis to practice, understanding to solution. Not a quick fix, but a discipline. The way a musician disciplines their hands or an athlete disciplines their breathing. Stoicism is training, not wishing. So the next time the spiral begins, and it will, because the mind is a creature of habit, you do not fight the thought like an enemy. You do something calmer, stronger. You name it. This is an impression. This is rumination. This is the old fear trying to protect me. Naming creates distance. Distance creates choice. Then you apply the Stoic blade again, gently but firmly. Is this within my control? If it is not within your control, you practice release. Not indifference, release. You let reality be reality. You stop gripping smoke. You say quietly, I can't command this, so I won't sacrifice my peace to it. If it is within your control, you reduce it to one clean action, one step, one message, one conversation, 1 hour of focused work, one apology, one honest decision. Overthinking loves infinite preparation. Stoicism demands finite action. And if you listen carefully, you'll notice something. Overthinking often does not want action. It wants certainty before action. It wants guarantees before risk. But life does not operate on guarantees, operates on courage. The Stoic does not wait for perfect clarity. The Stoic chooses the best available action with the best available mind, releases the outcome as something nature will decide. This is not resignation. This is maturity. Seneca wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. You can test this in your own life. Many sleepless nights were spent mourning a future that never arrived. How many hours were spent rehearsing a confrontation that ended up being simple? How many days were ruined by stories that dissolved the moment you stepped into the real situation? Overthinking is like paying interest on a debt that may never come due. Stoicism teaches you to stop pre-paying suffering. Yet Stoicism goes even deeper than that, because it recognizes the most intimate reason overthinking becomes addictive. It gives you the illusion of progress. It feels like you're doing something, like you're working on your life. But if the thought doesn't lead to virtuous action, it is not progress, it is motion without direction. A wheel spinning in mud. So Stoicism redirects your mind from prediction to character. Instead of asking, how do I ensure everything goes well? You ask, how do I remain good if it doesn't? Instead of asking, how do I control their opinion? You ask, how do I act with integrity regardless of their opinion? Instead of asking, how do I eliminate uncertainty? You ask, how do I become steady inside uncertainty? This is how Stoicism silences the mind, not by gagging it, but by giving it a higher job. Something strange begins to happen when you practice this consistently. The future doesn't vanish, but it stops haunting you. The past doesn't disappear, but it stops prosecuting you. You begin to experience the present not as a waiting room for your real life, as the only place life has ever been. You start to realize that peace is not found in a perfectly arranged world. Peace is found in a well-governed soul. Marcus Aurelius called it the inner citadel, part of you that cannot be invaded unless you open the gates from within. When overthinking knocks, you do not have to surrender the city. You can meet the knock with calm authority. You can say, I see you. I understand why you've come, but you are not in charge. And as the days pass, you begin to close the loop that overthinking keeps open. Each evening becomes an ending rather than a continuation. The Stoics practiced daily reflection, but not the cruel reflection of self-hatred, the clear reflection of improvement. You look back, briefly. Did I act well? Where did I slip? What will I practice tomorrow? And then you let the day go. You do not drag it into the night and make it your prison. Because Stoicism is not about being perfect. It is about being free. Free from the tyranny of impressions. Free from the addiction to certainty. Free from the endless internal trial. And here, in the quiet after practice, you finally notice what overthinking was stealing, not just your time, but your life. The taste of ordinary moments. The simple dignity of being here. The capacity to love without rehearsing loss, to work without rehearsing failure, to speak without rehearsing humiliation. The world is still uncertain. It always will be. But uncertainty is no longer a threat that must be solved. It becomes a condition you can inhabit with grace. When night comes again, when the room goes still, and the old thought tries to slip the lock, you may feel it approach. You may even hear it whisper its familiar lines. But now there is space around the whisper. Now there is a witness inside you, calm and awake. You breathe. You ask what is yours to control. You do what is yours to do. And you let the rest belong to the universe, where it always belonged, because you stopped caring. Because you finally learned the difference between care and control. And in that difference, the mind grows quiet, silent like emptiness, but quiet like a lake that has stopped fighting the wind. The surface may ripple, but the depth remains still. You fall asleep, not because you solved the future, but because you remembered a Stoic truth simple enough to carry through any darkness. The only thing you must truly master is the way you meet what comes. The next morning, the world looks almost the same, but you don't. You carry the night's noise into daylight like a hidden weight. You make coffee, you check your phone, you move through routines, yet inside you there's that familiar pressure, like a finger constantly pressing on a bruise. The mind is already running. It wants to revisit the same scene, the same sentence, the same fear. It wants to finish something that cannot be finished, because what it really wants is a guarantee. And life does not hand out guarantees. Here is the uncomfortable truth that Stoicism asks you to face without flinching. Overthinking is not merely a habit of the brain. It is a philosophy you did not knowingly choose. It is the belief that peace is earned only after you have controlled every variable. It is the belief that if you can just understand everything, you can prevent pain. It is the belief that uncertainty is unacceptable. The Stoics would call that belief the first mistake, not because it makes you a bad person, but because it makes you a tired one. They noticed something about human beings that still holds true. The mind does not suffer because it lacks answers. It suffers because it demands a kind of certainty that reality is not built to provide. When you demand that the future behave, you create a contract the universe will never sign, and the mind, sensing the universe's refusal, becomes more frantic. It escalates. It produces more scenarios, more rehearsals, more invisible battles. This is why overthinking can feel endless. You are using thought to accomplish something thought cannot accomplish. Stoicism doesn't respond by insulting your need for safety. It responds by refining it. It says you do need safety, but not the kind you're chasing. Not safety through prediction, safety through controlling outcomes. You need the only safety a human being can truly possess, stability of character. That's why the Stoics placed so much emphasis on what they called the ruling faculty, the part of you that chooses how to interpret, how to respond, to act. The mind will throw impressions at you all day, fearful, seductive, catastrophic, flattering, bitter. The ruling faculty decides which impressions become your reality. This is the deeper layer beneath. Some things are up to you. Some things are not. It's not just a concept to repeat. It's a way of living where you constantly reclaim authorship of your inner world. It begins with a quiet discipline that sounds simple, but changes everything, separating the raw event from the story about the event. A friend doesn't call you back. That's the event. They don't care about me. That's the story. You make a mistake at work. That's the event. Going to be exposed as a fraud. That's the story. Your partner seems distant. That's the event. This relationship is ending and I'll be alone. That's the story. Overthinking is the inability to stop at the event. It is the compulsion to build a whole universe around it. Because the story is usually written by fear, it tends to be dramatic, predictive, and cruel. Stoicism gives you a new job: become a careful editor of meaning. Not a person who denies reality, but a person who refuses to poison reality with unnecessary interpretation. The Stoic doesn't pretend nothing is happening. The Stoic insists on precision. What exactly do I know? What exactly is assumed? exactly is within my reach right now. Marcus Aurelius had an almost surgical way of bringing himself back to the raw material of the moment. The mind would inflate a situation, he would reduce it to its simplest description. Not to make it smaller than it is, to make it no larger than it is. He would strip away the extra commentary, the theatrical narration, the emotional exaggeration. You can do the same. If you're overthinking a conversation, you return to facts. They said this, I said that. Everything else is inference. If you're overthinking the future, you return to facts. There is uncertainty. There is risk. There is possibility. The rest is imagination. If you're overthinking your worth, you return to facts. I am a human being capable of virtue in this moment. That is enough to begin. This doesn't kill the spiral instantly. It weakens its spell. Because the spell depends on confusion, on the blending of what is real with what is feared. Stoicism introduces a second discipline, one that feels almost like stepping out of a noisy room into fresh air, the practice of choosing the right time for thinking. Overthinking is not always about the content of your thoughts. Often it is about the timing. The mind insists on solving life at the worst possible moment, late at night, in the middle of anxiety. Your body is depleted and your emotions are raw. It demands final answers during temporary storms. The Stoics would tell you, do not trust the mind's verdict when the soul is agitated. They didn't say this with modern neuroscience, but they understood the lived reality. You are hungry, tired, lonely, humiliated, or afraid. Your impressions become distorted. The mind becomes a biased witness. In those moments, the Stoic doesn't argue endlessly. The Stoic delays assent. Not now, not in this mood, not with this nervous system. This is not avoidance. This is wisdom about the conditions under which judgment should be made. So when the mind says, must solve this tonight, the Stoic response can be surprisingly firm. If this matters, it deserves a clearer mind than the one I have right now. Then you return to what is immediate, practical, and within your command. Drink water, step outside, do one small task, sit in silence without negotiating with your thoughts. You treat your inner world like a commander treats a battlefield. You stabilize first, then you decide. This is where Stoicism begins to feel less like philosophy and more like a craft, because you start to notice that your mind has patterns, and patterns can be trained. You learn to recognize the early signs of the spiral, the urge to recheck, the compulsion to reread a message, the need to replay, the hunger for reassurance, the sudden tightening in the chest, the sense that you are about to figure it out. If you just think a little more, that moment is the doorway, and Stoicism asks you to do something radical at the doorway. Refuse to step through. Not by force, but by redirecting the mind to its rightful territory, virtue and action. Because here is the secret that overthinking doesn't want you to discover. Spirals are unsolved because they are not solvable in thought. They are solvable only in action or in acceptance. If you are overthinking whether someone likes you, no amount of thinking will produce certainty. Your choices are to communicate, to observe, to accept ambiguity, and to behave with dignity regardless. If you are overthinking a decision, no amount of mental rehearsal will remove risk. Your choices are to gather reasonable information, choose according to your values, and accept that outcomes are not fully yours. If you are overthinking the past, no amount of regret will rewrite it. Your choices are to learn, to repair what you can, and to let time remain time. Stoicism doesn't offer the fantasy of a pain-free life. It offers the ability to stop creating extra pain. Now comes one of the most emotionally powerful Stoic shifts, the one that turns the mind from a frightened child into a steadier adult. Go of the demand to be invulnerable. Under overthinking there is often a silent belief. I must not be embarrassed. I must not be rejected. I must not fail. I must not be misunderstood. And because you cannot guarantee these things, the mind works overtime, trying to build a perfect self who makes no mistakes, receives no criticism, experiences no loss. The Stoics would call that impossible ideal a form of slavery. Because as long as your peace depends on being untouchable, your peace will always be in someone else's hands. Stoicism teaches you to rehearse not success, but strength. Not as pessimism, but as preparation. What if I am misunderstood? Can I remain calm and clarify without bitterness? What if I fail? Can I learn without collapsing into shame? What if someone disapproves? Can I keep my integrity without begging for approval? This is not the mind torturing itself. This is the mind training itself. Seneca's insight returns here. Like a steady hand on the shoulder, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The Stoic uses imagination in a new way, to spiral, but to build resilience. Not to predict every detail, but to remind the soul, even if the feared thing happens, I can meet it with virtue. Something loosens when you truly believe that. Overthinking loses its main fuel, the idea that disaster would destroy you. Because when you stop believing that pain is the end, you stop trying to avoid pain with endless thought. You begin to live more directly. You send the message instead of rewriting it 12 times. You start the work instead of endlessly planning the perfect start. You speak honestly instead of rehearsing every possible reaction. You rest when it is time to rest, because you realize fatigue makes liars out of thoughts. And in the quiet spaces between actions, you begin to feel something you may not have felt in a long time, a kind of clean simplicity. The mind is still there. It is no longer steering like a drunk driver. It becomes what it was meant to be, a tool. This is the Stoic path through overthinking, a dramatic exorcism, but a steady reclaiming of inner authority. Not the elimination of thought, but the purification of thought. As you move through the day, you start to notice the difference between necessary thinking and compulsive thinking. Necessary thinking ends with a choice. Compulsive thinking ends with more thinking. Necessary thinking produces a next step. Compulsive thinking produces a fog. When you can tell the difference, you can interrupt the cycle earlier and earlier, turning off a faucet before the sink overflows. The world remains uncertain. People remain unpredictable. The future remains hidden. Something in you becomes less frantic, because you are no longer trying to force life into certainty. You are learning to carry uncertainty without panic. And somewhere in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, perhaps while walking past a row of trees moving calmly in the wind, the realization lands softly, almost without words. Mind was never meant to be a cage. It was meant to be a lantern. You don't have to set the whole forest on fire to find your way. You only need enough light for the next step.